Welcome. This is the Do It All Dad Year podcast. This is your host, Michael Kornbluth. This is episode 10, Dear Mitzi. I would have liked to known you because you would have loved me. 12 years ago, you'd want nothing to do with me. But I've evolved, meaning my jokes, my delivery has become much more punch heavy. Obviously, you never remember, meaning you never forget that first year of stand-up in Los Angeles, away from family, all your close friends in New York, and you certainly don't forget getting goonish in the laughter department. I remember there was literally probably one line within an entire year, and it wasn't because of lack of trying, where the punchline was, meow, 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 meow! I think it was an anal sex joke. I really don't remember. But I remember this one guttural laugh that came out in a coffee shop. I think it was on Beverly. And that was basically it for that first year. I remember one time, Mitzi, there was a guy, African American, who would approach me after my set. And again, zero laughs, goonish, great Yiddish expression for you wonderful Gentiles out there that aren't familiar with it. I'll give you an example. I'll use it in a sentence. Back in the day when my daughter was 2 and she could only string 2 words together, we'd be at a deli, and I would say, Matilda, what did Tyson Chandler give the Knicks? And she'd say, Bupkis, Daddy, Bupkis. And Bupkis is the same thing as goonish. It means nothing, nada. You get the picture by now. So this African American approached me afterwards. I don't understand. I was acting very condescending, very elitist, definitely inherited that from my father. And he's an only child, narcissist. So I'm sounding way too much like Mark Maron right now. I'm wearing this corduroy coat. I'm reading a book by Bob Dylan. This is all before I perform. And material was abysmal. I thought it was great. Obviously it wasn't. And after my set, this African American was nice enough to approach me. He says, bro, you got the look, but I didn't smile once. And I love telling that story because he took an interest in me to some degree. I'm not saying that he saw major potential, but I thought it was nice to say, hey, listen, write better jokes. And what I've always said, and why I'm still drawn to the idea of really creating that killer set, I do have an email address on Gmail. It says killerset@gmail. And it's this. Comedy, and Mitzi would agree with this. Rest in peace, Mitzi Shore, the great Mitzi Shore, founder of the Comedy Store, mother of Pauly Shore, who dominated my youth in the movies for a while, had a really great run. Responsible for Mitzi Shore, responsible for setting up residencies for the great Bill Hicks, Andrew Dice Clay, Sam Kinison. Bill Hicks used to babysit Pauly Shore, so did Sam Kinison. She had these bungalows on the Sunset Strip. The Sunset Strip, right behind the Comedy Store. And she wouldn't pay her comics anything, but they got endless stage time, and that's worth the price of gold. And all these comedians will swear by her, and they owe their careers to her. Gary Shandling, eventually there was a major issue because she wasn't paying them anything, and Gary Shandling led a strike so they could start getting paid above nothing. I'm glad he did that. And she actually got the Comedy Store in a divorce. She was married to an old-time Vegas headliner. I forget his name. She adopted the name Shore. His name was something Shore. And she got the Comedy Store in the divorce. They say it's haunted. I went to the Comedy Store not too long ago. I was in LA. I had written a Eastbound and Down script where Danny McBride or Kenny Powers starts a campaign to get voting interest to ensure him getting inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame at Cooperstown, despite the fact that he hadn't even started resuming his career in the minor leagues yet. And it was actually a script inspired by the impending birth of my first daughter, because I have a scene where Kenny Powers in the beginning has this montage, and he has a vision of his daughter being the most dominating softball lesbian softball player of all time. So he's freaking out, thinking that she's going to overshadow his legacy just when he's trying to restart his career. And from what I recall, a long time ago, he says to his loyal compadre Kenny, I don't want to be known as the bitch version of the Bonds family. So back to what I was going to say about Mitzi Shore, and which you would agree with this premise. What's beautiful about comedy is that it's a pure art form. Either it gets a laugh or it doesn't. And usually, if you can make that joke airtight, as close to airtight as Woody Allen would say, I don't like to quote Woody Allen much more these days. The more I learn about previous, facts, like him keeping pictures of Sun Yi in his top drawer. And I know for a fact that he definitely wasn't just using those pictures, for ideas to tap for future creative inspiration, if you catch my drift. But I don't want Woody Allen to yuck up my homage to Mitzi Shore right now. My point, comedy is a pure art form. Either it gets a laugh or it doesn't. The Dr. Jerry Seinfeld would definitely agree with that. I've read interviews where, Seinfeld, the doctor, would, spend, literally, an entire year, trying to really fine-tune a bit, where a bit being 4 punchlines to get a laugh, and sometimes it takes him an entire year. So I like to think I'm on the right track, because my stats have been phenomenal on Twitter as far as my joke output. Jimmy Kimmel, again, I'm quoting all these yucksters that I really don't want to associate myself with anymore, but he says, if you had 3 out of 10, you're Woody Allen. So, Mitzi, I'm on my way. You would have loved me. I've evolved. I'm a scrapper. I'm a hustler. I know, Mitzi, that you said that writers can't be performers, but Gary Shandling definitely proved you wrong on that one, and I can't wait to do the same thing, too. I know I have your blessing to go for it. So, I love you, Mitzi. I never met you. We have no relationship outside of you being that wannabe adopted Jewish grandmother that I never had. I had a Jewish grandmother. She loved me, but, there were some issues. For example, she did not attend my wedding, which was a major source of anger for some time. This little bit where I said, in retrospect, I really wish I could have substituted my whiny Jewish grandma for like a wise black grandma for my wedding. Like, wouldn't that be great if I could have gotten a substitute grandma in the form of a wise black grandma for my wedding to replace my whiny Jewish grandma? I mean, how hard would that be? All I'd have to do is post an ad on Craigslist that said, wise black grandma needed. Tyler Perry impersonators are welcome. Just understand that we don't have any African-American friends attending the wedding, so you must be comfortable performing in front of white audiences only. That bit finally came together right there. That was for you, Mitzi. Looks like your spirit is channeling through my core. This is what happens when you read God, Faith, and Reason by the great Michael Savage. It's a real godsend. I recommend everyone to read it. Mainly because, especially for aspiring comedians or anyone that has any major anger issues in their life, I know this past year, you have the resistors, and the Hillary fans. I don't even know why they still exist, but people saying you're crazy, other people thinking that they're the most sane, and I alluded to in my last podcast, and it's this: you got 3 different types of people. You got the people that are consumed with anger, let it ruin everything, burn bridges left and right more than Godzilla. That definitely applies to me in my life, unfortunately. That would explain the fact why, for most corporate American jobs, I've been fired more than a Palestinian slingshot. Number 2, you have the people that really don't let the anger fester as much, but they find a way to process it, whether it be like wailing on a bag while blasting corny love from Hole in the background. I know that'll work for me a little bit this summer. Then again, I realized I definitely had a lot of pent-up rage towards my father, because in the process I ended up busting at least 3 chains in the process. So, smoking excessive ganja apparently didn't really relieve all that anger either, considering the fact that for the first time ever in my entire life, I would take a puff of weed, inspired by the Joe Rogans of the world, and I would get into this unbelievable flow. I would literally hit in the bag straight for like an hour without taking a break. But I have 3 kids now, and I can't do that anymore. So, mainly because my daughter would ask these deep questions on ganja, and it'd be like too intense for me to handle. Daddy, if God created the universe, who created God? Eventually I'd say, God went back in time in a time machine made by Elon Musk. And she'd say, real convincing, Dad. That could make me an atheist at 4. don't believe in repeating material here in my podcast. So I was talking about my grandmother. My father's excuse for allowing her to miss my wedding was that she's bipolar, depressed. I would have had to look after her. So, of course, a very self-serving approach or explanation on my father's behalf. Last time I checked, the wedding's supposed to be about me, not his own, self-entertainment. But, he's an only child, and, his father died when he was young. So he's had to endure a lot of her craziness. I mean, I've had experience with real crazy. I wouldn't really say that my grandma was on the 10 DEFCON 4 level crazy. Crazy is having a girlfriend when you live in Los Angeles your first year away from home, and mommy and daddy aren't giving you money anymore, which was definitely overdue on my part. You're working as a cold calling IT headhunter in Los Angeles, in the City of Angels, living in West Hollywood. Somehow I overcame my stutter. I am the only kid in the history of man that graduated the esteemed Roy Park School of Communication with Ithaca who still had a stutter. But due to relentless cold calling, pounding the phone 12 hours a day, I eventually overcame it. I am very proud of those battle scars. And so this is back then. We're talking 99, so right before Y2K. And a true psychopath is a woman that is older than you, look like a Lorraine Bracco, not as chesty, unfortunately. And she lived with two of the girls in Santa Monica. And once I decided to break up with her, she decided to tell the cops about this gross lie, which was that I beat up on her. Meanwhile, I don't even know how to throw a punch effectively, to be perfectly honest. And I was talking about busting bags before. She shows up to my West Hollywood apartment at 12:30 at night, and she's got mascara all over her eyes, so it looks as if I gave her shiners. Meanwhile, before I know it, I'm in handcuffs, and all I'm thinking about is that I don't have source material ready for the next day, meaning my boss would fire me if I didn't have my leads for places to call to place network engineers the next morning. I also have no idea who I'd call to bail me out of jail. My parents are back east. I had some friends, but it's not like they were deep friends that had money that were going to bail me out. I had no idea what to do. Thank God I saved her voicemail messages that completely illuminated what a psycho she was and how possessed she came with me. So they listened to the voicemail messages. Long story short, at the end, they take the cuffs off me, and I got the most empathetic look of all time. I said, "Really sorry about this. Hope things work out." And I applied for a filing disorder. I filed for a restraining order, and so that's a true definition of a psychopath in my eyes. Wouldn't call my grandma a psycho on that level. So, and my grandma, she passed away not too long ago, but I had a real moving moment where, and I'm talking about Jewish grandmas here because I think it's a relevant theme for the Dear Mitzi episode. And there really weren't that many people at my grandma's funeral. She had a lot of friends. A lot of them died. I don't know. I really wish some of them were there, but they weren't. I think most of them had died. I don't really know the full details, but I was the only one that spoke there. I wasn't planning on it. I did have those resentment issues. I never really got over the fact that she never made my wedding. She never apologized for it. I did have a couple of kids back then. Now I got 3. She was in Arizona. My parents were in a home there, so she wasn't able to grow close to my kids. I remember before she passed, she goes, "I do love you," and I remember telling her about my dreams that I had to really make a name for myself in comedy and the writing and the stand-up. And what always bothered me was her that bewildered look, like, what? Oh, so really, this is what you love, or you really think you're capable of this? And this is my attitude. This is Do It All Dad Here podcast as far as parenting. Howard Stern alluded to this not too long ago, and this is how I think every parent in an idealistic sense should be. If in terms of constructive criticism and encouragement, when your kid, let's say they want to pursue acting, comedy, whatever, if they show any sort of incremental development, I think it should be encouraged. But if they suck out loud and consistently blow, it's your moral responsibility to tell them, "Hey, listen, maybe you should try something else because I don't think that you're advancing at all, and it's not your real natural aptitude." And that ties into what P.T. Barnum talks about in his autobiography when he says that you're not going to achieve greatness in the world in anything, in any profession, if you're not aligning your natural gift with what that profession calls for. So that's why I really want this podcast to work. So I think it's a good marriage of my guests. Between the writing, the comedy, the improv, the spreading of my ideas, that sort of thing. Never running out of things to say, obviously. And, for example, P.T. Barnum talks about how because back then you would trade, he can never do anything mechanical. He can never be like a welder. He was never a guy taking things apart as a kid. Now, my son, Art Show USA, he's good at that. So I could see that. He's also got a flair for the comedic. I make these jokes. Not to be pornographic over here, but whenever he decides to prance around naked in the house, I'll say, put that thing away. It's going to poke out my eye. And then I came out of the shower today, understand my towel's on, but my son was saying, Daddy, put that away. It's going to poke me in the eye. It's hilarious. So he's got the flair for both. Thank God. Because what's unfortunate, and what I've realized with a lot of comedians is that they tie up so much of their, and Mitzi, I'm sure you'd agree, they tie up so much of their self-worth into being funny, because that's the one thing in their entire lives that they've really only been able to excel at. Jeff Ross being an example. I know he talked about that during his premiere for his USO tour, which is great. Totally recommend it. And once in this life, when you suck at everything else, you may feel like a total moron, then you find something that you're good at, and you realize make other people happy, you're going to commit the totality of your being to trying to make something out of that and make a career and earn a living from it. And that's why I'm in this podcast right now. Meanwhile, I'm applying for tour guide positions in Manhattan, and I don't want to look at it as a bad thing anymore, as far as like the job being beneath me, because I see it as an opportunity to tell stories about a city that I love. It's for Central Park. It's a walking tour guide, and last time I checked, a job like that would be far superior to me banging my head in Manhattan, in Midtown, or in some shitty office in Times Square doing IT staffing again, something I have no passion about. And no matter how much positive spin I inject into it, I would just be miserable and wear my resentment on a sleeve, and then I act entitled and really just view that job as giving me writing room or room to do stand-up, and that just doesn't work out, folks. So you want some advice for your kids? You'll never get fired from a job as long as you have the right attitude. Right attitude dictates everything. So I'm really hoping this tour guide thing works out. I think it'll be great writing material and step in the right direction for me. And get me back in the city. Get me in the swing of things. It's something like I can still manage as far as doing this podcast, looking at the kids in the home front. So Mitzi, I'm really glad you're enjoying my new plan of attack here in life, because I was so fortunate to be doing stand-up in my 20s, develop my type 5, and then have you take care of me and you incubate me, and then all of a sudden I have all of Hollywood there on my doorsteps for showcases, and then by the time I'm 26, I have TV development deals, and I'm like Bob Saget, and I never really have to be that funny ever again. So hope you enjoyed that rant, Mitzi. I'm funnier than Bob Saget, but I like him, and I thought Dirty Work is great, and he was very moving and affecting in the Gary Shandling documentary, The Zen of Larry. I think that's what it's called. I strongly recommend it. But back to my grandma's eulogy. So, I've been in a real spiritual path lately, folks, and I had this moment where, God had completely swept through my presence, and I started talking to my grandmother in the most calm, serene way. I talked about, she got me a book by the great Rabbi Mendel Schneerson. A lot of the Lubavitcher Jews believe he was the Messiah, and he wrote this book. It's a collection of his teachings. Very powerful stuff. Think good and it will be good. Something I always tell my children. Tony Robbins would definitely, sure he's incorporated that quote into his lectures in the past. And I made a comment with my brother being a complete degenerate, writing some Sliznut's phone number in it, which pissed me off at the time. It's like writing in the freaking Torah. But that's my brother for you. And so talking about Rabbi Mendel Schneerson, me being very grateful. It was an amazing gift that she gave me that I was always grateful for. And also, she worked for Pfizer. She worked as like an executive assistant. She had some some stocks. She gave it to me. And really, I wouldn't have been able to pursue, dive into stand-up, write all those cards, and just go into it without that wiggle room. And I'm grateful for it. So I gave this very moving speech. Rabbi's blown away. Now, this is true comedy, Mitzi. You could appreciate this. Afterwards, he goes, so you're a writer, you're a comedian, so what are you doing now? And I said, I'm living with my parents, or something to that effect. Whatever I said, it wasn't going to be enough, because he thought I was like made in the shade. And then I never worry in the world. It's in the Writers Guild. At that point, I had to get on my TV writing break for VH1. Still didn't make a difference. Still not in the Writers Guild, but so we're for a non-guild signatory. Besides the point, not trying to bore you guys with my resume over here. But That was a beautiful moment, and if I go and make a career giving eulogies, as depressing as that sounds, my grandfather wasn't my real grandfather. My real grandfather died before I was born. My grandma soon remarried. I gave a speech for him. I was in Cape Cod that summer, fell in love, talked about God again. First time ever talked to God that summer, Cape Cod, Chatham. God, I'm dying over here. Throw me a bone. I'm a romantic at heart. All I did when I was a kid, listen to my clock radio, listening to REO Speedwagon, dreaming, fantasizing about walking with Kajal, a prettier, sexier, taller Mindy Kaling, Indian American, no Indian Rafa Jackson at all whatsoever. My slow dance partner during my bar mitzvah years. Visions of slow dancing with her, walking hand in hand in white playland. This is what I thought about. Like, God, please, throw me a bone. I want a relationship. I got a lot of gift over here. I'm dying over here. I know you love the Dice Man, Mitzi, so that was for you. But, and he threw me a bone. All of a sudden, I'm strumming a guitar, trying to learn it. Still haven't. I'm staring at it right now. Already, my 3 children possess greater mechanical faculty with it than I ever did. And this beautiful blonde, her name is Katie King, came out of nowhere. And literally, I mean, it was like that song Little Wing from Jimmy. I mean, I might as well have been strumming in the background. It was beautiful. Beautiful long hair. Mom's from South Carolina. My true summer wind. Never said I loved her. Came very close. Was so much of a pussy. Couldn't really handle the devastation of what you say in response. But that was wonderful. And that was God coming through for me. So thanks for that, God. Because she gave me a very important lesson that summer, kid. Because I never knew someone could make me so happy. So that gave me incredible self-worth, knowing that I had that ability. Now I'm talking to you guys right now. Because if I thought that I was some putz that didn't say, why the hell would I start a podcast think I can entertain millions of people on a global scale? That wouldn't make any sense. That would be delusional and crazy. I'm sure Mitzi would agree. I always need a warming up time, Mitzi, before I can really get into my flow. So, eulogy. So my grandpa, not my real grandpa, died. I gave a speech. I presented at the last minute. Again, rave reviews, but this was such an insulting moment. So, my grandfather's, one of his daughters, afterwards had the gall, that means the balls, to say, did you write that yourself? So basically, the implication was that I was a total moron, incapable of, producing anything poetic or meaningful that carried any sort of intellectual weft that would make anyone jealous on the spot whatsoever. So F her and her boring son that went to Harvard, and for all I know, him and Forever Ziffe Zuck got anally probed, and they are committed to destroying free speech and everything that America holds dear forevermore. So, because he's that much of he was an evil prick then, and he's probably an evil prick now. And the anal probing probably just magnified that process. So, but I just wanted to say, Mitzi, that I love you. I love what you represent. I love that you love comedy, that you live for comedy. You recognize that it's our greatest export product. There's jazz, there's baseball, yeah, there's rock and roll, not to completely belittle it, but comedy, Pryor, Mooney. I don't want to mention Robin Williams. I found out that he was a joke theft, and he killed himself. That still kills me. I gotta be honest. Seinfeld. I gotta be honest here, folks. I mean, people say, oh, so why do you want to be a comedian? Who do you like growing up? Dice. It was Dice and Rodney. That was it. Why am I pursuing a tour guide position right now? I remember, I have a video. We went on this family Kornbluth trip to Puerto Rico. My voice is fluctuating between Andrew Dice Clay and Rodney Dangerfield. That affected me. That's what I found funny. And that killed my friends and I. So I just love Mitzi knowing that she gave Andrew Dice Clay an opportunity to become who he became. Because he made my my adolescence, my age of hair metal adolescence, something to remember. He inspired for me to write Heavy Metal High, which I pitched at VH1 Classic. He plays my adopted Jewish father figure that appears in the nurse's office after I achieve puberty. Appears in a cloud of smoke, starts clapping. He goes, "Congratulations, you finally achieved blast off, jerk off." Wrote a trilogy. Love writing for his voice. I literally sat my brother down when he was visiting, and I read him all 3 skips in a row. And every time I did the dice, I killed him, and that made me very happy, knowing that I was able to channel the Dice Man, Mitzi, and capture his voice. It's always been a natural talent of mine. Sure you would appreciate that. Not really, I don't have the acting skills of Eddie Murphy, but I could capture a voice like no other. So I would have loved to have showcased that to you, Mitzi. And Mitzi, one last little anecdote here to wrap things up. So we're in Arizona with my brother, his ex-fiance, long story, got a 60 dice. And he was hilarious. He was so funny. All new stuff. He was a killer. At one point, we're just showing love. Like, Dice, we love you. I don't remember what I said. And out of nowhere, Dice goes, points me out specifically, big-headed Jew over here. He goes, "You're an asshole!" Funniest moments of my life. I said, Dice, I mean nothing but respect. True story, folks. Literally, 2 seconds later, bada boom, bada bang. He sped through his nursery poems, got off stage, and I like to think on some level that he felt my energy. I'm not going to say that Dice Man was intimidated by my energy, but you could make the argument that it did trip him up a little bit, because I've never seen a guy that was in such a rush to get off stage after he was on top of the world. So that's for you, Mitzi, and that's why you would have loved me, even though, and I certainly would have loved, I said I would have loved to have known you, because you were the ideal Jewish grandmother for any Jewish aspiring comic / writer who basically, for the most part, was made to feel like a complete idiot. Never, as a kid, never really had that sister or mom or grandmother that truly believed in their creative potential. And you were that person for many people. Mark Maron, the poet, who you told to wear a scarf on stage, who's a poet. I would love to have gotten a compliment from you too. So, Mitzi Shore, rest in peace. I love you for everything you represent and for everything you did for the world of American comedy. Do It All Dad, your podcast, dad-friendly entertainment for you and me. Talk to you soon.